Spring forward clock change in the UK is happening this week. So when we go through clock change, as grown-ups, we may not put too much thought into it, but actually this can be a really challenging week or two for your little ones. That is because of the science behind the sleep. So our circadian rhythms are really quite rigid and can be quite difficult to make adjustments to, especially if things outside of their world, their external environment isn't really changing. So quite often people compare it to going on holiday and think that it's fine when we go on holiday, but that is a different kettle of fish because children are in a completely different environment. There's lots of different stimulation going on. There's changes to routine. So holidays can go by in a little bit of a blur. And can sometimes confuse our circadian rhythm, yes, but clock change really can as well, and I think that it's best to just be prepared. Now, luckily, the spring forward clock change is known as the easier one because on paper, 6 a.m. becomes 7 a.m. or 5 a.m. becomes 6 a.m. more importantly. So if you are struggling with an early riser, then first of all, if you are struggling with an early riser, then take this as a sign that you do not need to do anything, because if you do not make any changes, your child's body clock will stay exactly the same, and the only thing that will change is that 5 o'clock will become 6 o'clock. So you'll just have to change what time on the clock you're putting them to bed, but actually don't adjust their routine or schedule at all. If you are not dealing with an early riser, lucky you, first of all, because lots of people struggle with that and clock change is just another spanner in the works. However, if your child is waking up at, let's say, 6:30 a.m. and you want to keep that's a pretty regular timing in your household, then you are going to need to make some adjustments. Now, what confuses people is that we say spring forward, quite often we'll automatically think that we need to push their body clock forward as well. We actually don't. We actually want to move it backwards. So if 5 a.m. is becoming 6 a.m, then what we actually need to do to maintain a regular wake-up time and not push that wake-up time any later is we need to move their clocks backwards. There's 3 main methods to be able to do this. They are all really useful in their own ways. I prefer method 1 and 2. 3, which you will hear about in a moment, can be a little bit more sporadic and can leave you with a few weeks of difficult bedtimes or early mornings. So the first method is the gradual approach. So this is best adopted for children who are particularly sensitive, super alert tendencies, little ones who are still napping, even if it is just once a day, or if you are just about starting to get your little one into a regular bedtime. So you've had a little one, 3-4 months old, and you're just establishing a regular bedtime, then this is the one for you as well. And what you're going to do is the Wednesday before clock change is you are going to put them to bed 15 minutes earlier. So let's say 7:30 p.m. is when they are normally going to sleep. You want them to be going to sleep at 7:15 instead. The important thing to do here is to also make sure that their regular wake-up time also changes by 15 minutes, and then also their lunch and dinner through the day. So their staple points through the day are adjusting by just 15 minutes earlier. It's a manageable number. It doesn't push our little ones or chuck them in at the deep end. What it does is if you do that on the Wednesday, then again on the Thursday and the Friday and the Saturday, and by the time you get to Saturday night, your little one will be going to bed a full hour earlier and waking an hour earlier, which means that Sunday morning, when you wake them up in the morning, the clocks would have changed through the night, but you're going to get them up at their new regular time, and you'll already be through that adjustment. Now you might see a few fussy bedtimes. I say fussy, but it's not really their fault at all, just where their body clock might take a couple more days to fully accept that. So if you see some delayed sleep onset, don't worry, just stick with what you're doing, stick with your normal routine and your normal timings after that clock change, and you will be fine within a week maximum, and that is for really sensitive little ones. The second method is the 50-50 split. So very simply for this one, this is for slightly older children. I find it better for slightly older children who perhaps aren't napping anymore, probably school age, and are fairly easygoing, but that them getting massively overtired can have an impact on their behaviour and emotional regulation. So for little ones who are no longer napping, then what we can do is we can not make too much of a big deal of it, but on the Saturday night, you're going to put them to bed 30 minutes earlier. So 7:30 p.m. bedtime becomes a 7 p.m. bedtime instead. And then on the Sunday, obviously the clocks will change, but you will put them to bed at their normal time, which will be adjusted. The only thing with this, again, is that you will probably see that it takes a few days for them to go to sleep as quickly as they would have before. You might find that a child who normally goes to sleep within about 15 minutes is actually taking about 30 minutes to fall asleep. And that's okay. Again, just make sure that your environment is optimized. Make sure it's nice and dark in their rooms. Go through your normal bedtime routine, normal steps, normal order, just a little bit earlier, and it should only take them a couple of days to fully adjust, and then you'll be smooth sailing and no issues with clock change. The last method, method 3, is the all-in-one, or as I like to call it, the do nothing. So completely normal bedtime on a Saturday. Just make sure that they don't go to bed later than normal this Saturday night. And then on the Sunday, you're just going to put them to bed at their normal bedtime. However, be warned that it may well be a few ups and downs through that bedtime settling, because their body clock is going to think, I'm not ready for sleep. This is an hour earlier than normal. However, this can be really effective if you have a more relaxed approach to clock change. Your child is not particularly sensitive to changes with their sleep, or you have one of those rare children who just manage to sleep anywhere and everywhere, then that is the best approach for you. If you have any questions at all about the spring clock change, then please get in touch. You can either get in touch with me on my website in the link, or you can book a call with me as well, and we can have a 30-minute session to discuss your little one's sleep. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, so that I can start helping more parents like you, and so that you don't miss my next tips and tricks.